In this session, first we'll see about electrocardiograph, and then we'll study about regulation of cardiac activity. So first, let's see with electrocardiograph. In short, it is ECG. What actually is this electrocardiograph? Is a graphical representation of electrical activity of heart during a cardiac cycle. I'll just mention during cardiac cycle. The graphical representation of electrical activity of a heart during cardiac cycle is what we call the electrocardiograph. Now this, as I said, it is a graphical representation. It shows a graph, and it shows different peaks in the graph. So this is how we will be seeing a ECG, and this one shows different peaks, and these peaks will be represented with the alphabet letters from P to T. So this one starting with is the P wave. This is this peak we call it P wave, and here this is the Q, and here it is R, and here it is S, and this is T. So once this ends, again it starts with the P wave. So again it starts with the P wave, and again the Q, and again the R, and it goes. So here you can see again the P, Q, R, S, and T, and goes on, right? Now at present we'll see to from P to T only, right? So I'll see what actually this P represents, what the Q and R and S and T, all of them represents. So here the P wave represents the depolarization of atria. So it represents the depolarization of atria. Here depolarization, which means the contraction of the heart. So we need to take the depolarization as contraction. We have one more word called repolarization. This you have to take it as relaxation. So when the auricles or ventricles come back to the normal state, we call repolarization, and when they are in a contracted state, we have to take it as depolarized state. So P wave represents, so this deflection when the sino-auricular node generates an action potential that is spread all over the atria walls, then it results in the contraction of atria. So that is the P wave. Then next goes with the QRS. So these three will take it together, and we call as a QRS complex. The QRS complex, it represents the depolarization of ventricles. So it represents depolarization of ventricles. Whereas the last one, the T wave, it represents the repolarization of ventricles. So the T stands for, so this I'll mention as T wave. It is repolarization of ventricles. Means when ventricles come back to their normal state, so you get, okay, this deflection, right? So this is the ECG, the normal or a standard ECG, what we call it. So this where what I have discussed is about a standard ECG, right? So a normal person, okay, with his heart in normal condition will show such ECG. So by seeing, okay, the differences in the P wave, QRS complexes, and then T, will come to know what is the problem with the heart of a person, right? Okay, then we'll see in detail, okay, a few more points on this ECG. So here from the P to Q, this indicates, as I told, the contraction of atria. I'll mention in detail. P to Q is the depolarization of atria, indicates the depolarization of atria. Then Q to R, this represents the cardiac impulse or the electric activity is being, okay, transferred from SA node to AV node. Q to R is spread of the cardiac impulse from SA node to AV node. Impulse from SA node to AV node. The next one, from R to S. From R to S, it indicates the impulse being spread from, right, AV node to Purkinje fibers. Okay, so that I'll mention. R to S indicates the spread of the cardiac impulse from AV node to Purkinje fibers, and that results in the contraction of ventricles. Then the next one, from S to T. So S to T indicates the repolarization of ventricles. So from S to T, it indicates the repolarization of ventricles. So now you can see, from P to Q, it indicates the depolarization of atria. So where atria are in, okay, in a contracting state, and from Q to R is the spread of that electrical activity from, that is action potential, from SA node to AV node, and from R to S, that indicates the spread of that action potential from AV node to Purkinje fibers. And lastly, right, of course, this will result in the contraction of ventricles. So that is what from Q to, right, S indicates the contraction of ventricles. So here depolarization of ventricles, which means contraction of, right, the ventricles. Then the S to T indicates the ventricles coming back to their normal state. So that is a relaxation. So this is the normal or the standard ECG. Now to get this ECG, right, we follow, right, in a standard procedure, Ithovan's triangle. Okay, so we follow Ithovan's triangle, right? So here in the Ithovan's triangle, how we will be actually connecting the mission to the person by leads. So there are certain wires we call the leads, and we'll connect it to three different parts of the person. So that will be the left arm, then the right arm, and then the left ankle, or we'll take the left leg, so where we connect near the ankle. So here this is the point where we put a lead. This is another one, okay another lead, and here is okay another lead. So this is what actually we call it Ithoven's triangle, which includes the left arm, right arm, and the left leg, and that is connected to the ECG machine, which will take these electrical impulses from the skin, and then it shows on a paper in the way which we have just seen before. Right, so here connected to a ECG machine, and all these are electrical leads. Right, so hence here of course we consider this Ithoven as the father of electrocardiography. Is Ithoven. So right, so we'll see now a few points by seeing the ECG how we come to know there is a problem with the heart. So here the elevation of ST region, the elevation of ST, this will indicate, it indicates myocardial infarction. In short we call MI. So it indicates myocardial infarction, and that is nothing but heart attack. Heart attack is also called myocardial infarction. So if we see there is an elevation in the ST wave, then it indicates the myocardial infarction. And there are certain other problems like tachycardia and bradycardia. So what this tachycardia is, it is a fast heart rate, right? And that rate will be usually more than 100 beats per minute. So here when we consider greater than 100 beats per minute, then the condition is called a tachycardia. And here the bradycardia, which means slow heart rate. So in this case, if that heartbeat is lesser or fewer than 60 beats per minute, so 60 beats per minute, less than 60 beats per minute, then the condition is called the bradycardia. So if we look at the graph, that is ECG of tachycardia, you may see something like this. I'm just mentioning. So you can see here there is the distance between this, here we have QRS complex. So from here to right from this R to this R, the distance is very less. So this indicates the person is having tachycardia. In the similar way, when we see this bradycardia, so in the case of the bradycardia, you will see, right, you can see this distance, okay, which greatly increased, okay, between one hour and another hour. So this is in the case of the bradycardia, and this is in the case of the tachycardia. So like this, we can come to know by right looking at the graph what problem might be with the heart of that person. So these are some information that on ECG, electrocardiograph. And if we see a straight line, and this indicates no electrical activity of heart, which means the heart stopped beating, and this is where you will see in a condition called cardiac arrest. So this you will see in case of cardiac arrest, so where the heart completely stopped beating and you will see a straight line. Right, so that's all about electrocardiograph. Next, we will see about regulation of cardiac activity. The next one, regulation of cardiac activity. So here, the heart is controlled by, right, autonomic nervous system and also by hormones. So heart is under the control of ANS, that is autonomic nervous system, and also under certain hormones. So we'll see what are those hormones and how the heart is under the control of autonomic nervous system. And before I go into it, I would like to tell a few more things. Right. So one, this heart is of two types. In the entire animal kingdom, you may find two types of hearts. So those are neurogenic heart and another one called myogenic heart. Right, so in the entire animal kingdom, you may find two types of heart, neurogenic heart and myogenic heart. So in the case of neurogenic heart, the heart is under direct control of the nervous system. Of course, in the case of myogenic heart, right, it is also under the control of nervous system, but it is indirectly, that will be through the autonomic nervous system. So in the case of neurogenic heart, okay, we those organisms who have this neurogenic heart have something called cardiac ganglion. There is cardiac ganglion. So this cardiac ganglion is present on the dorsal surface of the heart. And acts as a pacemaker. So here the moment we see the ganglion, so which means the collection of nerve cells, right? So the cardiac ganglion is a collection of nerve cells which are present on the dorsal side of the heart, and that acts as a pacemaker. Means I can compare it with SA node in case of human beings, right? So that heart is directly controlled by these nerve cells. So hence such type of hearts we call them neurogenic heart. Such hearts you will find in case of arthropods. Then coming to the myogenic heart. So this myogenic heart, here the heart contractions and relaxations will depend on, okay, a special tissue, what we call it a nodal tissue. And that nodal tissue, just we have seen in our previous sessions, is SA node. Okay, so in this case the heart is controlled by specialized heart tissue, and that is called the nodal tissue, right? And that nodal tissue we have seen it as the SA node. The sinoauricular node is the one that acts as the pacemaker. So here you can see in the myogenic heart, it is not any ganglion, but a specialized, okay, the cardiac tissue will be acting as a pacemaker, and that is the one which initiates action potentials and help in the contraction and relaxations of the heart. Okay, right. Now, example, in this case, the myogenic heart, you will find in case of vertebrates, almost all vertebrates and mollusks, etc. So even if you remove the heart from the body, the myogenic heart will be going on contraction and relaxation. So if we provide certain conditions, it can go for a few hours contracting and relaxing out of the body. Now one more point, in case of amphibians, there is a structure called sinus venosus, and this acts as the acts as pacemaker. So how we see that in the amphibians, we know in case of amphibians they have the three chambered heart. So here you will find a triangular shape structure on the dorsal side of the heart. So this is how it looks. Okay, so this is what we call the sinus venosus and is located on dorsal side of heart in case of amphibians. And of course this is the opening of sinus venosus right into the right atrium. Okay, so this one acts as the pacemaker in case of amphibians, right? Okay, I'll mention here, this is opening of sinus venosus into right atrium, right? So this is a few points that we see. The heart in the animal kingdom may be of neurogenic or myogenic heart. So we mammals and almost all vertebrates will have the myogenic heart, and in other group of animals like these invertebrates, the arthropods, have a neurogenic heart that is a direct control from the nervous system. So here I also said that the myogenic heart is also under the control of nervous system, but it is not direct. Indirectly it is under the control. So how it is, we will see. Right, so here there is vagus nerve that comes from, okay, or is the part of this autonomic nervous system, and this vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve, and this vagus nerve innervates the SA node of the heart. So we know that there are two parts of autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic. So the nerves from, okay, both sympathetic and parasympathetic will innervate the heart. So the sympathetic will help in, or it increases heart rate, whereas the parasympathetic, it decreases the heart rate. Okay, so this is how the brain indirectly controls the contractions and relaxations of the heart. Of course, in certain emergency situations, when we walk in a jungle and suddenly rat and dangerous animal comes in front, and you have two chances, either to fight with it or to run away from it, for both of which you require a lot of energy. So immediately the information from the brain, okay, through the eyes, what it has received will pass to the heart, so that the heartbeat increases and a lot of blood will be supplied all to your muscles, which actually supplying more oxygen and more, okay, glucose, so that oxidation takes place in higher quantity and releases more energy that is required for that situation, to fight or to run away from the situation. And when you don't have any such situations, so the heart beats normally and it will be in normal beating. So that's how the sympathetic nerves and parasympathetic nerves, the part of autonomic nerve system, can increase the heart rate or decrease the heart rate. And there is a special neural center. There is a special neural center in medulla oblongata. Is a special neural center in medulla oblongata, and this neural center will help in moderating the cardiac functions through this autonomic nervous system. So this neural center, special neural center, moderates the cardiac functions, right? Right, to increase or to decrease, and that will be through this sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? Then let's this is about how the nervous system, right, indirectly controls the heart, okay, contractions, or I mean heart rate. Then we'll see about hormones. So what are different hormones that are involved in increasing the heart rate here, especially these adrenal, okay, adrenaline, and one more hormone called noradrenaline, both of which are produced from, okay, adrenal medulla. So these adrenaline and noradrenaline will be responsible for increasing the heartbeat. So they increase heartbeat. Even there is one more hormone, that is thyroxine, from the thyroid gland. This also, okay, increases heartbeat, right? So adrenaline, noradrenaline from the adrenal medulla will increase the heartbeat, and also the thyroxine from the thyroid gland will also increase the heartbeat, right? So with this I'll stop here. So regulation of cardiac activity. So in the Next session we'll see about the disorders of the circulatory system, so that will be a very small part, and once we finish we'll start with the objective questions.